Welcome to another episode of OG55. We have a very special guest with us today, Jared from Capture the Magic. We are talking all about Universal, leaning into nostalgia, the potential here with this, up next on OG55. Welcome aboard, everybody, to another episode of OG55. We are talking all about Universal today, leaning into that nostalgia, Back to the Future, all that good stuff. Before we get started, I'll start with you, Jared. Welcome to the show. It's good to have you.
Thanks for having me. Thanks. I'll be back. Those graphics, I need to figure out. I got to step my game up. I feel like I'm in a movie now. But yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk about nostalgia and Universal, and think I got to do something with my graphics now. I feel bad though. Thanks for having me, though.
Fiverr.com. I live by it. I love that website. Yeah. Fiverr.com. But Jared, if you could let everybody know where they can find you on social media, your YouTube, your podcast, all that good stuff.
It's at capthemagic everywhere on YouTube, Instagram, all those. And then we do have a podcast on the Capthemagic channel. I just have daily videos talking about various different things, theme parks, pop culture. And then over at CTM Podcast is our podcast about specifically Universal Studios, Disney World topics, where we talk about park tips and things like that. So those two places, or we can find it on YouTube. So depending on what you want to find, that is where you can find it.
There we go. And George and I were actually a guest on his show. I think it was like about a week ago now. Fantastic content over there. I'll be linking all of the information down below. Make sure you go and follow and subscribe to Capture the Magic. And again, thank you, Jared, for coming on. Appreciate you.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Mr. Webba, how are you today, sir?
I am fantastic. How are you?
Doing fantastic. It's been a long time. Haven't heard from you in a while, man. Where can everybody find you on social media?
Absolutely. You can find me on Twitter, Mr. Webba at Webslinger760, and then on Threads and Instagram, Mr. Webba at Cobweb91. You can also find me here on OG55.
There he is. And right over there, right next to Webba, we got the Italiano, Mr. Italiano. Welcome back, sir. How you doing, brother?
Doing good. Yeah, just got back from Disneyland. Hightailed it back. Did some in-park work, and now on some podcast work. So it's always the hustle and bustle, but I love it. The Italiano work never done.
There we go. You can let everybody home know where they can find you on social media, George.
Absolutely. You can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Disney George. You can also find me on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky under the Disney Italiano. And of course, you can find me right here on my home base on Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner, with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info.
There he is. And right below last, but certainly not least, the one and only, the very sexy Slimer. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing great. Hey, thanks for inviting me back on to talk Universal Parks. George is shamelessly living the life, I gotta say. So George, keep it up. You make all of us feel bad. And yeah, I'm ready to talk about this, guys. Universal Studios is kind of like where my head is at right now. And I feel like a lot of you guys are kind of feeling the same way here. But you guys can find me on social media at X at SlimeSquare84, and I'm right here in Orange Grove 55.
There he is. All right, let's dive in, guys. Great topic today. This is actually courtesy of our friend over there at Five Fires, Mr. Mondo. He says here, great Scott, new Back to the Future display went up at the studio store inside the park. Don't see any merch, but I can only imagine more stuff is coming soon, hopefully Universal Studios Hollywood. So it seems like Universal lately, with the Fan Fest that we're seeing, we're getting some Back to the Future stuff with that. The new parade over there in Florida, leaning into things like Jurassic Park and Jaws and all the E.T. classic Universal IP. I'll start with you, Jared. I mean, I feel like this is sort of like in recent years, I feel like Universal has really sort of leaned into its roots, its history. What do you think about this? I mean, do you think, am I kind of misinterpreting the situation here, or do you feel like there is more of a push here lately, at least?
No, they've been leaning pretty heavily into nostalgia. Like you said, the parade. I mean, they even had the tribute store where it was like an old 80s video like rental store, like a Blockbuster you could go into. They had like Jaws, they had Back to the Future, Ghostbusters. There's another one in there I can't remember now, but yeah, I mean, they're leaning heavily into it. And like it, Disney has their nostalgia, which is it's more of a historical nostalgia a lot of times, with like Walt and different things like that, where Universal's is much more on the movie side and like pop culture. They're definitely leaning into it. I talked about it the other day. If any theme park was ever going to do perhaps a throwback ride, for instance, I think Universal would be the one to do it. I kind of hope maybe in the future they would, but yeah, they've been leaning heavily into it. And I mean, it's gone over well. My wife's a huge Back to the Future fan. I like it. I haven't been complaining one bit. I think it's gone over pretty well as well.
Yeah, no, 100%. I agree with you. I think it's a really smart move. It's worked, like you were saying. Disney does it a lot. You know, they have a pretty storied history and everything. But Universal too. They got a lot of great history, a lot of great IPs, old school IPs, and it's refreshing actually to see some of these older IPs come back. You know, like Back to the Future and like ET and like that. I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be very successful for them. And they're taking a play at Disney's playbook, and it's worked for the mouse. I think it'll work for Universal. Mr. Slimer, what are your thoughts, brother?
Yeah, I mean, they've been going hard the last couple of years, actually, and to varying level of success. But I would say most oftenly very successful. The Ghostbusters house at Halloween Horror Nights last year was a very popular house, probably top 3 in terms of popularity based off of exit polling. So, you know, they did the right thing by bringing Ghostbusters back. And while the movie didn't do, phenomenal at the box office, it seems to resonate with park goers in a way that maybe doesn't resonate with moviegoers anymore. And I would feel like Back to the Future is very much like kind of the same way. So there's something about the old attractions that are resonating at the parks. Now, what Universal does have the option to do here, and I think what they're ultimately going to do is, you know, like what level they're going to reintroduce these parks, these rides back into the parks, is probably going to have to do with the revenue that these IPs individually generate, right? So, like if you take like Beetlejuice versus the latest Ghostbusters, for example, Beetlejuice made like twice as much money. So at the movie theater, but how that ties synergistically into like merchandise and a ride. They got a couple options, and these are the kind of options that I want to explore with you guys, because they can bring Back to the Future not just in terms of a ride, but if they're looking at it and saying, hey, this fits in the park better as like a musical, right? Like the Broadway musical that's down here at the Strata Center in Tampa. I think that's going to be sometime in April or May, and it just left Broadway actually. That's a possibility. And the same thing with Ghostbusters and Beetlejuice. So they have like different avenues of approach that they can bring back these classic IPs if they decide that, it's, just probably financially more applicable to bring it back as an entertainment, an entertainment attraction as opposed to a thrill ride, and I think a lot of that's going to be based off of not just box office returns, but also synergistically how it works within the parks and with regard to like merchandising and all the other events they like to do throughout the year.
Yeah, Back to the Future is interesting because with the new technology that Universal has been using and that they're using currently, Epic Universe and stuff like that, you can do a lot of amazing things with this franchise. You can kind of do like almost like a Forbidden Journey attraction where you sit in the car. It's like a Kuka arm thing, and you go through physical sets, and there's also screen-based motion stuff. I mean, the sky is really the limit with that, and Universal has really proven itself. I would say the last 25 or so years, really since Islands of Adventure, that they know how to make a really quality product, that gets right up there with Disney. So I don't know. I would be very excited to see them go big with Back to the Future. But like you were saying, Summer, we'll have to kind of see, if they're moving the merch, they might do that. If the merch isn't moving, then maybe they won't. But a lot of fun opportunities though, creatively, if they do decide to go down that road. Mr. Webber, what do you think, man? Universal leaning into nostalgia, smart move, or where are you at with that?
Oh, I mean, I agree with you guys. It's one, absolutely a smart move to do, because in my opinion, those were like the best IPs that they had. And two, right, if like you're saying about the merch movement, if there's strong merch movement, I do think there will be a stronger incentive for them to want to make a Back to the Future attraction, or whether it's a ride or a show or whatever it can be. However, I'm really curious because we have the new show, right? We have the parade, we have the Sensational, is that what it's called? Mm-hmm. And then what do you call it? So now we have this little setup here, and I'm wondering if this is kind of a way to kind of they're dipping their foot in a lot into the nostalgic stuff, but I wonder, especially with Back to the Future, because there was already a prior ride there before, if they're trying to maybe now engage the interest again the park goers. And like you said, if there's merch that's starting to move and they see a lot of popularity with Back to the Future specifically, I think we could potentially see a return of Back to the Future in some format into the park.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go back to the Future, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Mr. Italiano, what are your thoughts on this universal nostalgia?
What they all said. No, for me, the second that actually Mondo released all the Back to the Future apparel on social media, I tagged Slimer into it because we were having a conversation about that for the longest time of like the possibility of, you know, bringing Back to the Future back to the parks. And I found that was just quite interesting of that Universal would go like out of their way to create not even just like maybe like one or two pieces of merchandise, but a whole line of like whether it's clothing or mugs or what have you, of just nothing but Back to the Future. And I think that this is a test run, no pun intended, to see like how well even the merch moves, to see how relevant it is in the park setting. You know, we all know the Back to the Future franchise is a, you know, beloved trilogy, but in the park setting, do people want it back in the parks? And us as nerds, you know, we definitely want it, you know, but a lot of times they look at the bigger demographic. And I think this is a great start to see it coming back to the parks in a bigger way. And honestly, I know we'll get into it further in detail of like what kind of, in what kind of way Back to the Future would come back, but I would want it more technological. I would rather have it more than just a roller coaster, if you will. I mean, you could really hype up a roller coaster, but I would want something more immersive to kind of give what Back to the Future deserves, for sure.
I would agree with you.
Yeah.
Jared, what are your thoughts on that? I'm very curious. What kind of ride, what should you, if they were to do this, what approach do they take?
I don't mind your Kuka arm idea. I think that would be really cool. There's now Universal announced they're getting rid of Ride Rockit for some unknown coaster coming in. There's some rumors that some people think it could be Back to the Future. I doubt that's the case. My wife is still bitter they got rid of the Back to the Future ride. She won't even touch the Simpsons ride. She holds her breath and walks through like a graveyard.
Jared, sorry, real quick. I just want to say, we went to Universal.
Here we go.
Yeah, real quick. So we went to Universal. It was me, Georgia, and Abby to Universal for the Halloween Horror Nights. We're waiting for OG, and now I haven't been to Universal except last year in over 10 years. Now I love Back to the Future. I'm still bitter that they got rid of it, and I never went on The Simpsons because I was like, screw that ride. How dare you, Universal, getting rid of that ride? I finally decided to go on Simpsons with them because, you know, we had the Express. I was like, okay, fuck it, let's just go on it, right? I went on it. I was like, this shit is ass. This ride sucks. Bring back to the Future, man.
It is bad. It actually, my wife gets motion sick, and it made her horribly. We did it I talked her into it one time. I was like, let's just do it, and she's like, fine. Made her horribly motion sick, and she's like, I'm never going on there. Like, we had to. One of the haunted houses was in that queue, and she hated even being in the queue. So I get it, but in terms of like what they would do, like I don't know. I'm always bad about the different rides they can do. Like, I would be on board. Like, I wouldn't want a replacement of what they had, though. I think you, like George was saying, something more technological, like a Kuka arm. It's a proven ride system. You could do some cool stuff with that. Even if, like Slimer said, the Broadway thing, they have that Fear Factor building that just sits there for most of the year outside of Halloween Horror Nights. You could do some sort of Broadway style, like different, you know, Beetlejuice, Back to the Future. Like, you could rotate stuff in there to have a presence, depending on if they want, like, you know, like George is saying, do they want to do a ride, or do they just want to have more of a somewhat of a presence of the IP in the parks? I honestly think they may, because the merch sold like crazy. So my wife tried to get the Back to the Future lounge flight. She finally got it, but it was sold out for months.
Wow.
We randomly found it walking out of Islands of Adventure in that little side shop, and they had like 10. And that's the first time we'd seen it in a while. So I think it sold well. Sensational was a great show. Actually, it's still going on now. They've got a big Back to the Future and all of the Jaws and all of them in there. So they've got a lot of options. I would love an attraction personally, and I would lean toward as high tech as you could do it. And I personally think it would be a success.
Now, Jared, would you put this in the studio park or one of the other two?
I think it would go in studios. I think that's
Yeah.
probably. I mean, to me, Islands is more your thrills. You've got your Marvel stuff over there. Like, it would make a lot of sense to me putting in studios with the nostalgia and the fact that it was a movie franchise, like E.T.'s in that same park. So I feel like that's where it would fit.
Yeah, no, 100% agreed. 100% agreed.
Supercharged and put it in there. That's what I would say. But
Yes, Emma, that's your favorite ride, right? Supercharged.
Dude, that is ridiculous. That was the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in my life. Okay, let's put it that way.
I know it. Like, I'm gonna go on the Ebba rant with you because honestly, not too much gives me a rant, but I'm still surprised that that thing is still even there. Like,
now, have you seen the Fast and Furious movies lately?
No, I haven't seen them in years.
As cringe as that ride is, it's not that far off from those movies, to somewhat give it defense. But what's funny is Universal themselves know it's not good, because we got stopped one time to do a little survey. And actually, I think I told you guys about it. We had to sign an NDA because it was about a potential video game attraction that they may put in. So she did a group thing. They're like, okay, what's your least favorite ride at Universal? And before we could answer, he goes, besides Supercharged, we know exactly where that stands. We're like, oh, okay. We had to think for a minute.
I mentioned this before. Like, anytime you think of Fast and the Furious, you think of like high-speed cars, Corvettes, kind of like this brand spanking car smell and everything. No, they put us in this like dirty ass tetanus shot party bus that it's like that you just like, and you expect that. Okay, what is it? I actually enjoyed the pre-show of the Supercharged than the actual ride, because if you get a good team member, they know how to like hype it up and kind of do this kind of comedic moment, like trying to get you hyped up for this party. But then when you actually get on the attraction, it's this party bus that goes 90 miles an hour with all these fast-paced cars. And Emma's favorite infamous helicopter scene with Vin Diesel.
Vin Diesel flying off a helicopter.
Dude, that is the most proportioned, awkward scene I've ever seen in my life, dude. And the pre-show, if you go through it, you might just find OG there in the fucking party.
Yeah, exactly. That's me. That's me. Absolutely. Yeah. No, that
rides. I want to know the process of how it got greenlit. Like, I really am I just want to fly on the wall, be like, it got presented as an idea and how it progressed. And then like, yeah, let's do it. And then they saw that, and then they just kept saying yes to it. I'm like, why did nobody say no? We're like, hey, let's not quite go this far. And they're just like, well, I have a feeling Vin Diesel and them were like, no, I'm off a helicopter. I need to fly into a car. And they're like, okay, put him in the helicopter.
I remember riding that with you, Eva, and we were sitting next to each other, and that helicopter scene came by, and you were cracking up. You were dying.
I was dying because it was me and you and Theme Park Wizard, and I was dying, man, because again, I that was my first time going on it, so I didn't know what to expect, and as ridiculous as everything else was, that took the cake, dude. I was like just busting up laughing. This is so ridiculous. Get rid of that thing. I hope we get something else better, because I remember that stage building used to be like the Mummy with like the tunnel thing.
Oh yeah,
I remember.
Yeah,
that was the last time I went on it before this past year. But as regards to like a Back to the Future thing, Slimer, I thought I saw something where there was talk about, or rumor, speculation about a kind of Kuka arm, what do you call it? Ghostbusters attraction. And I was, there was a picture and it looked like kind of like the Ghostbusters car, but like you're like kind of inside it. It's like a kind of cabinet you're in. So I was thinking, what if they did it Back to the Future of a Kuka arm, but similar to that? Because like what George was saying, I want to be in something that's like tech, and the car is a piece of machinery that can go into the future. So I want to be inside the fucking DeLorean. So, and what I like about the Kuka arm, like with Harry Potter, it gets you up close to the scenes. You have digitals, you have the screens, you have the practical sets. So I would like to be like in a high tech like vehicle, or like a Kuka arm where the vehicle, it looks like the DeLorean. You're sitting in it and you kind of get close to everything. You're flying around. You know?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And then you have to start off with roads. We don't need roads. And you just launch, you know? You're
Yeah.
fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Now Slimer, I'll start with you, Slimer. With Ride Rockit, that's closing now. We got the confirmation, but we don't know what's replacing it. And there's been a ton of rumors, all kinds of IPs connected.
Second best ride in the park after Supercharged.
Yeah, there you go, George. Exactly.
Absolutely.
Slimer, what are your thoughts on this? Like, what's your? Well, I think I know what your ideal would be, but what's your ideal? And then realistically, what do you think is actually going to be going in there?
Well, I want to take like the Disney World approach to what's going to be replacing Ride Rockit, right? So, like, if we were looking at it as if it were a Disney park, the first thing we would do is say, okay, well, it's in what land is it in? All right, it's in New York, all right, or it's adjacent to New York, but it's in New York, right? But it's also right across the street from the new Despicable Me area, the Minions area. So they can go like really like three ways with this. They can add another Minions ride or Despicable Me ride and really like round it out so that way it's just not the entrance strip. Okay, I don't see them doing that. I don't think the Despicable Me was a big enough hit for Universal Studios Florida for them to keep expanding the IP into the park. And again, that's one of those issues they run into where like they don't have that synergy between their movies and the theme parks, because it's like Minions is super popular in a lot of different ways. Like if you go to the restaurants or merchandise, top 5, okay, like literally like Minions merchandise is top 5 for Universal Studios. But when it comes to attractions, Universal is kind of like, well, we haven't really hit an idea yet that has struck gold when it comes to Minions. So I don't think that a roller coaster for Minions is going to work for 2 reasons. One, the demographic that it's aimed towards, to replace with a roller coaster that goes, if they're going to use an Intamin track that goes 55, 60 plus miles an hour,
or 80 miles an hour,
or 88 miles an hour. OG, you've been on the internet long enough to know that back in the what was it like early 2000s, like right after they closed the ride, the theme park forums were littered with a roller coaster that looked like a DeLorean that was going to go 88 miles per hour. I don't know if you guys remember that, but that was the very first rumor. I don't think it's going to be Minions. I think we can kind of roll that out. But if we're looking at it based on the land, it's in New York, right? And who's in New York? The Ghostbusters. Whether it comes back as Ghostbusters or not, I think that's kind of common sense to bring back Ghostbusters there. If they were to bring it back into the parks and if they wanted to maintain the integrity of the theming from, New York to San Francisco to World Expo and et cetera, et cetera. But again, like, I don't know what kind of money Ghostbusters is bringing in. But the one thing I'll tell you this is if you were to gauge it off of like the amount of return, like the amount of times to bring Ghostbusters back, whether it's in Halloween Horror Nights, merchandise, the movie store that they just recently had, the fact that it's integrated into Cinesational. I mean, these are all licensing rights that they have to continuously pay. And they're probably doing it on a year-to-year basis with Sony because Sony has deals to bring Ghostbusters in other parts of the world and other theme parks because it's an international brand. I mean, it's looking pretty favorably. I mean, it's a very inexpensive, safe play that doesn't require a lot of technology. They can integrate ghosts. Maybe they can throw some proton packs on the gun or on the ride. You shoot ghosts and shit like that. That would be kind of fun. It wouldn't be very high tech though. It'd be more of like you're in the Ectomobile, kind of like zooming around in New York, kind of a thing, chasing ghosts.
Would you use the Fast and Furious, what they're building out here in Hollywood, like the drift cars?
Yeah, I would. I would do something like that, and then you can build like buildings around it and make it kind of seem like you're drifting through New York using, I don't know what kind of technology, but probably some kind of like screen technology like they use in Tron, where it made it seem like you were in the grid by incorporating screens to simulate like you were going to almost crash into the blue or orange walls and stuff like that. So I'd put Ghostbusters there. And I mean, as far as Back to the Future, hell, I'm going to kind of deviate from you guys. I'd be cool if they just bought the old ride back and maybe made it like 3D, like reformatted in 3D, gave it a really good processing and made it work with glasses and brought back the old actors and the old, I mean, just bring it all back, maybe just give it a refresh. And but what I would do differently is I would bring back Hill Valley and have a Cafe 80s and and have a hub.
That would work really well if you did an 80s themed cafe like that. I think that would be
I think Simon Tour is saying, I think if you brought back the ride, really in any format, I would love to see, like what you're saying, a Hill Valley like little kind of like mini land or so, where you have the cafe 80s and whatnot, and that'd be cool. If they had like the cars from the 80s and stuff there, like that'd be really cool. But I think it'd be cool having more of Back to the Future implemented along with the ride, not just the ride in the building. That's it.
As a kid growing up, I was like that perfect age for Back to the Future Part 2, and I wanted nothing more than a hoverboard. And if they can manage to make those a reality, oh gosh, Universal, you'd make a mint. You would make an absolute mint selling those things.
See, my thing is with Slimer. I think it's between on that coaster for Ride Rockit. It's probably between Ghostbusters, because it's in New York. It's in that old building there nearby where they used to have that show, and probably Fast and Furious, because my guess is Supercharged going away. And then they because that makes it makes so much money. Like, it makes a ton of money overseas, especially. I imagine, and they're doing the coaster out in Hollywood, they may put that there, that open up space. But I would not be mad about a Ghostbusters at all. And I if you're gonna go the old route of like the simulator, do the Disney way of the Banshee. Let me sit in the DeLorean, like have the clocks in there, like we can sit in there like you're in it. I don't know how you'd pull it off, but I think something like that would be really cool. But yeah.
And then if they do something like that, I would want it to be as detailed as possible, but it would definitely have to be based off of how they execute that. Because when they decided to try to do that with the Millennium Falcon, with Star Wars, it kind of became its own detriment, because they try to make it so ingrained like the Millennium Falcon, where it's like, okay, off to the side, you hit the buttons, you hit the switches and everything. And you're not even paying attention to what's even going on around you. So as long as they can find a way where you can have the aesthetics of the internal ride system, like the Mandalorian, but where you could still focus on the ride itself, definitely the way to go.
Yeah.
I will say, let's say at least for Hollywood, because I don't know about Florida, but if they bring the ride back, let's say as a simulator for Hollywood, can we get something done about the queue? That queue is excruciating long, dude. It's a long queue. It's like you wait out here, then you wait here, and then you wait there. It's like 3 different sections you have to wait in, and it's just grueling, man.
Yeah, I mean, if they bring it back, my money on that in the West Coast version, about the Simpsons. Well, now that it's Simpsons, I have a feeling that whole area, because obviously their contract is going to run out. I think next year, it's gone. All that's going to be demolished, and it'll be something completely new. New land, new everything. I just
have to laugh after Ebba said that, because when we were in line for the Simpsons, because we went through like three separate parts of the queue, and I'm going to quote him. He turned to me. Right before that we were boarding, he said, "How many pieces of the queue are there?"
Yeah, right.
It just felt like it was going on forever until you actually board. So,
because you have the outside portion, which it zigzags, and then you have an indoor portion where it's like a pre-show. Then you have the pre-show, and then you finally have the attraction. And it's just like, and you're saying, usually Universal has really good ride operations. I know we talk about that a lot, like the ride ops, but for that particular like ride system, that queue, it takes forever.
Yeah, it's an old setup. That thing's been there forever. And Theme Park Wizard was actually telling me that the building's in pretty bad shape. Like, it's not doing so hot. Like, they got to get rid of it.
That was the rumor about the Simpsons land. I'm sure it's probably Hollywood about they're going to end that contract and replace it with something else in the Florida side. But one of the reasons being is because that building where Back to the Future was the ride and everything's in like really, really bad shape. And so I think that, I mean, it's probably at this point, when was it originally built? It's got to be at least 30 years old.
At least, yeah.
Something like that. So it's old. It's probably at the end of its lifespan in general for both of those probably.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, it's interesting that we're speaking about nostalgia and Universal, because at Epic Universe, their newest park, and I also, Jared, before we close it out today, I also want to talk to you about your experience at Stella Nova. I'm very curious how that went and everything. But they're leaning heavily into nostalgia so much that a big part of this new Park Epic universe is the Universal monsters. And I got to admit, I'm eating crow big time, because I was initially, when they said that, I was like, I don't know how that's going to work, because
exactly the same,
right? It's a 100-year-old IP. Like, is this going to really hit? It's literally my favorite thing. That's my most anticipated area. Is that kind of where your head's at, Jared?
I mean, I'm still the most excited for Super Nintendo because I grew up Nintendo. I'm a Nintendo kid. My kids are into it now. And so, like, for me, I want to go there. But honestly, it's probably number 2. And I'm the same with you. When they first announced it, I was like, I don't care about Frankenstein, like, whatever. But the more they showed about it, and then, speaking of the Kuka arm, that's what they've got in the Frankenstein Manor, is that's a Kuka arm with all those animatronics in there. And it's supposed to be Forbidden Journey on steroids, is from what somebody works in creative had messaged me and just said, you'll be blown away. And I was like, okay, I believe you. But funny enough, saying at Stella Nova, because that's right across the street from Epic Universe, I could hear them testing, and I was hearing screams, and I was like, well, either somebody's being horribly tortured or they're doing some sort of testing in Dark Universe, because it was right nearby. But yeah, I'm the same. It looks, especially at night, it looks so cool. They're gonna have like fog and all the monsters. It's just, I never thought I would be excited for it, but it's my wife's. I think it's her most anticipated land too. Like, it looks really, really cool.
It looks so sick. I mean, it looks so sick. And that burning windmill tavern.
Yeah.
I mean, the aesthetic. Go ahead, Webber.
No, I was going to ask you guys with this, because this is actually my most excited part for that park as well. Do you guys think this, depending on how well it does, I mean, I'm sure it'll do well because all the excitement around it. Do you think this will revitalize the age of like monster movies coming back, but just like in a modern format?
I think it's already happening. I mean, Wolfman just came out this last weekend.
Did it?
Yeah, Wolfman just came out. And then Nosferatu was a really big hit. Nosferatu was Robert Eggers' highest grossing film. It made like $100 million for a horror movie. And was that opening weekend or the first week? Jared, correct me here.
I think it was the opening weekend. Yeah, because it did really, really well.
Yeah, it made $100 million on the opening weekend. A remake of Nosferatu, a film that came out in 1922. Wow. So we are well into the age of horror. 2024 and 23 were great years for horror. Blumhouse came out with so many films you couldn't even watch them all. We're there, guys. If you're not watching horror, that's probably why you don't realize it. But if you're into it, like, it's here, it's been here, and it's
trust me, I lived it. I was married to it for 10 years.
There you go, George.
George, I'm on your side, man. Well, and like, if you want to get down the rabbit hole, the failed Dark Universe franchise they started to launch with Tom Cruise, and that movie, The Mummy, didn't do very well. Them naming the land the same thing, there have been the theories that they're going to do like a reverse IP of sorts and relaunch all that monster stuff after, like, you do the land first, get everybody invigorated, and then come out with maybe movies or shows or whatever the case may be. But yeah, I mean, I think it's, I agree with Slimer, especially look at Halloween Horror Nights, how popular that's gotten. I mean, I think the genre is, and those movies are cheap to make. They don't cost you $250 million. A lot of times these are under $100 million to make them. And I think,
and speaking of Halloween Horror Nights too, kind of staying on the subject, but digressing a little bit, even look at Beetlejuice, for how much money that movie brought in. I think Beetlejuice would be a really cool kind of nuanced kind of way of adding more to Halloween Horror Nights, because you can kind of have that spooky but kind of like slapstick kind of
funny
kind of anything to replace the weekend. Like I don't care. They could do whatever they can, because I'm sorry, I did not like that. Well,
George, you bring up a really good point. Like, if they really want to capitalize on Ghostbusters and Beetlejuice simultaneously, what they can do is come up with a ride where the Ghostbusters are like chasing Beetlejuice. Like, why not just combine the two IP? I mean, you have like two of the most popular IP of the entire decade of the 1980s, which has well outlasted. I mean, like, if you really think about the shelf life of 80s IP, this is how strong Universal's movies are, right? Like, so E.T., Attraction Ideas recently did a really good YouTube video. If you haven't checked him out, check out his content. But it's like, why is ET making a resurgence? And it's totally true. Like, if you go to Universal, like, the line's always like 30 minutes, 45, 60 minutes. And you're like, what the fuck? Like, ET?
It always is, yeah.
But it always is. And the reason is because the new comes and goes. but the old, the proven, the Blues Brothers, E.T., Jaws, Back to the Future, Ghostbusters, they just have staying power that Universal just hasn't been able to capture in a long time. And they might get it every now and then, you know, Fast and the Furious, but like, where do you see the Fast and Furious merchandise at? Nowhere, because they don't have synergy with that IP. Great for the movies internationally. People eat that shit up, man. Hey, summer movie, you want to go kill some time? Yeah, let's go watch Fast and the Furious, you know? But in terms of like how it ties into, again, that flywheel that Universal's trying to create with their parks and their movies, it just doesn't got it. And I think that that's why it's not going to open over here. And if it does, I really think that it'd be a really disservice to the fans, because the fans are basically telling them like, hey, we want these old IPs. But yeah, I mean, if they merge like Beetlejuice and Ghostbusters into a ride, what, dude, that'd be so awesome.
That'd be cool.
Well, and Slammer, you and I were talking on the phone when we were talking about the possibilities of, you asked me what would I like to see of Beetlejuice, and I was kind of leaning more towards like a Mystic Manor kind of dark ride for Beetlejuice. As far as like for the Fast and Furious merch, you can go into a Walmart, buy a 4-pack Fruit of the Loom t-shirt, boom, there's your Fast and Furious merch.
Yeah, right.
I feel like they should lean into the campiness of it more and just have it just like family, like just lean into the whole thing of just how insane, like those movies are actually insane. If you just watch them from like first to the last one, you'd be like, what did I just watch? Like, it doesn't make any sense.
It makes no sense. And the crazy thing too, well, actually the really optimistic thing too, with these older Universal IPs is that I really love all the love that Dark Universe is getting, because I think this land is going to prove to be at least one of the most successful areas of that park, and that's going to send a message to Universal, like, your old IPs, they're fire. They're fire, and lean into those, because people want those, you know. And I think that's gonna be good news. Go ahead,
of course, they're setting the windmill on fire, so they know it's fire.
There you go. Exactly.
Well, I mean, like even here on the tram, they have that one building on the wall, that huge like mural of like all the monsters on it. That was dope. That was really cool. So it's like, yeah, you know, they are leaning into these older IPs, but especially with the monsters. And I don't know, Jared and Slimer, like, what do you guys think it is about the older IPs that just have such the lasting stay power that these newer IPs that they're coming out with just don't have?
Go ahead, Jared. Then we'll go to Slimer.
Well, if you look at, there's an old rule, I think 20 or 30 years, nostalgia really kicks in. You have kids, you remember the certain things. And I think it's just, a lot of it's nostalgia, obviously. A lot of it is too, if you look at these IPs, like, they haven't been messed with a lot. Like, there have been a ton of remakes. Like, they've had a Beetlejuice movie. Okay, Ghostbusters had a bad one in there, but like, for the most part, like, they've been treated fairly well. And so I think, especially Back to the Future, like Zemeckis has said, like, we're not doing any more. Like, we're leaving it as it is. I think it helps these things as they age, because you're not going and doing like a prequel to Back to the Future and then like potentially messing it up. So I think a lot of it is just, it's simple nostalgia, and the fact that like, they don't make movies today like they used to, if I'm being quite honest. Like, it's very rare. And I think back then movies had heart, and they were just entertaining. They weren't trying to, you know, you didn't feel like anybody was trying to make you feel a certain way other than just being entertained. And I think people just, you know, in nostalgia, you know, you may not always remember it exactly what it was, but you have a good feeling. And just, I saw this when I was 10 and I loved it. And it just, I'm that way with like Ninja Turtles. I love Ninja Turtles. Even though the new ones are not as good, but you know, I still feel that way on some level with that IP.
Yeah, well, and you were saying, we were talking privately about you would like a Ninja Turtle ride, which I think would be an incredible attraction for a Universal park. You know what I'm saying?
They had Ninja Turtles in Disney, weren't they? Hollywood Studios,
MGM Studios, yeah.
Back in the day, yeah. I mean, the newest Ninja Turtles movie, I can't say that I didn't hate it, but it wasn't the best in the world. But yeah, I'm a Raphael guy. So if you got Raphael on a ride,
here's a fun little fact for you. Do what you wish. When the Ninja Turtles were at the time, it was MGM Studios, not Hollywood Studios. One of the Ninja Turtles, when they would come out and do their shows, Kevin from the Backstreet Boys was one of the Ninja Turtles. Before he started in the Backstreet Boys, yeah.
That's why
interesting.
I like Backstreet Boys better. That makes sense.
now, the Universal Kid Park in Texas, in Frisco, they're going to have a SpongeBob area, which SpongeBob, I believe, is Paramount, and so is Ninja Turtles. So they're going to have a working relationship with that studio. So you never know. Maybe Ninja Turtles, maybe they can work that in, you know?
That's true. Although I think is it Spyglass is buying Paramount now? Skydance.
Skydance, yeah.
Yeah, Skydance. Sorry, yeah, they're buying it. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely possible. I mean,
so Jared, what kind of ride system would you use for Ninja Turtles?
Oh, that's a great question. It would be a tough ride to do. You'd almost have to go like where you go, honestly, not to reuse like Kuka Arm, you go through the sewers, pop out, fight some people. Like it would be a tough one to do, but I wouldn't go the Mario Kart route with VR. Like I don't really like that stuff too much. But yeah, I mean something where you can actually feel like you're fighting the Foot Clan and Shredder's in there. Like, you know, maybe if you had a cool Shredder animatronic, I'd be on board to have that. And I'd have to think about it more, but yeah, something like a Kuka Arm. It does, that ride system gives you the ability to like immerse you into scenes that I think other ride systems don't. From that perspective, like a first person type thing.
Well, 100%. And I like your idea too of coming out the manhole and stuff.
Oh,
that's like perfect. Now, Jared, I think you and I are about the same age. I think you, Slimer, and myself are all about the same age. So the live action Ninja Turtle movies. When you were a kid, were you pretty into those, or?
I went to the Ninja Turtle concerts. I had a jean jacket that we did. We remember they used to raise up through the floor in the concert. We do that. I was into. I loved them.
I may not be as old as the three of you, but that's what got me into Vanilla Ice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go Ninja, go Ninja, go.
Remember the first movie where all those kids were in Shredder's thing, and I was like, "How these guys? This is awesome! They just hang out and play video games and skate." I thought, and then I was like, "Oh, they were bad kids. Like, you know, it taught you a good lesson. Like, you need some discipline in your life.
Go play."
I just beat up teenagers, and you're like, "This is illegal, highly illegal."
Fantastic. Now, before we pivot to our final topic, which is going to be Jared, your experience at Stella Nova, anyone have any final thoughts on nostalgia and Universal's push for it lately? Any final thoughts before we move on?
Push harder.
Exactly, Jared. Exactly. Universal, if you ever come across this video, push harder. Lean as much into it as you can, because you have some fantastic IP, and Disney has shown consistently it works. And why not?
So actually, I have one question though.
Sure.
So they push harder, as Jared says, for the older IPs, which is great. Where does Universal go on from here?
Well, I mean, I would do the older IPs.
Well, no, I know. I mean, like after the older IPs, then where do you go?
It's a good question. Universal has they do licensing deals a lot, so it does. You know, you potentially, there was the rumor that like Marvel Superhero Island was going to go away. I've never thought that was going to happen, just because they would give it to Disney, and then Disney would use it. So I've never thought that they would do that. You know, like Slimer was saying, like they have some of their own IPs. Like I think Despicable Me has kind of hit its ceiling in terms of probably what they'll do in the parks. Yeah. But you know, if you go licensing route, you could potentially, you know, pick like Lord of the Rings has been a rumor. I don't know if that is a strong enough IP to bring into the U.S. parks. Maybe the one they're doing in the U.K. But you know, I think you could kind of maybe pick and choose, find an IP that maybe has a little bit of lasting power, has an audience, sort of, not that it's going to be as strong as say Harry Potter, but one that has a following that you think we could bring into the parks. That's probably where I would lean, unless they just have a really hit movie that comes out in the next couple of years that they could easily push into the parks.
See, I would love for them to revitalize Jaws back in some way. I mean, I know that's an older IP, not as old as the Monsters, but I mean, essentially Jaws put films on the map just as what's titled as like the summer blockbuster and everything. And it was like ahead of its time, and the hell that Spielberg went through to make it. It's just that quintessential Universal IP. And again, I love the Escape from Gringotts attraction. I do. But there are times where I get a little salty water going back there to know that was replacing Jaws. Now, again, I know that they had a lot of issues with the mechanical shark, just like how they did actually on the real set. And it was causing a lot of money, you know, to fix it and maintain and everything. But even if they don't bring it back in its old format, but just bring something back of Jaws, like, I don't know.
So what it sounds like to me, right? Because Okay, so if you watch this channel, you probably know this, but if for whatever reason you don't, Universal likes to take friendly jabs at Disney. They do it on
Yeah.
Twitter all the
Yeah.
time, and it's always hilarious.
It's
All right, because
funny,
it's in good taste. All right, but what if they made the great movie ride, and it's like the best of nostalgic movies. So you don't have like one ride based off of like Ghostbusters or Jaws, whatever. You kind of like blend it all in and make like a great movie ride, but with Universal IP.
That's
I
brilliant.
think, yeah, I think that would be hilarious. I think that you get everything all at once. You get your fill. And it gives them the opportunity to bring in other bigger, newer IPs, more like Pokemon, for example. That's got to go somewhere.
Actually,
I think
I would agree. Pokemon, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably put that in Islands of Adventure versus Universal Studios because it doesn't have to do with the movies. It's more of like fantasy, right? But yeah, the great movie ride featuring Beetlejuice, Ghostbusters, and Jaws, right?
That's perfect. That's
I think it would
perfect.
work. Well, and I just thought of that, and I don't know why I think about it before. But when you're saying what's next, I honestly probably more Nintendo.
Yeah.
I mean, there are rumors out there about Zelda and Pokemon.
Yeah.
Nintendo is insanely popular. I think that's a no-brainer. The biggest rumor is in Epic Universe and the expansion pack that they do like Luigi's Mansion. So I think you'll probably see. And video games are huge. I mean, they're bigger than movies in terms of how much money they make. So you easily could see more video game franchise. And I think Universal would be a theme park company that would do that. That would bring in actual more video games.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I agree, Jared. And also another thing, and I don't know how likely this is, but there have been whispers, there have been rumors that Comcast is looking into buying Warner Brothers, or at least maybe like their library or something, If that happens, total hypothetical, obviously, you know what I'm saying? But if they were able to finagle that situation and get the Warner Brothers film library, the studio stuff, I mean, that would, they would have material for forever, basically. I mean, Warner Brothers has like the best IP library, only second to Disney, in my opinion. I mean, you have everything from, Harry Potter. You wouldn't have to pay the licensing fees for Harry Potter anymore. And you have the Looney Tunes, Animaniacs. You have all the Hanna-Barbera stuff, which is all which is all
Batman, Superman. You could do
exactly all the DC
Iron
stuff.
Giant.
Iron Giant. I mean, it would be endless. So if they can get their hands on that, that would scare Disney like crazy because the potential is out of this world.
And they could, because Warner Brothers is hurting. I mean, they've been hurting for a while. I don't know how much they are in not bankruptcy, but in debt now. But it was in the tens of billions the last I heard with Warner Brothers. So
wow,
it could happen with them potentially. Maybe not buy, like you said, maybe the rights to the library or something. But that would be huge. I mean, that would open you up to a ton of things you could do.
Absolutely. And I've always been a big fan of their stuff. Like their animation is amazing. I love their legacy stuff. And it's been really, really mismanaged. I think ever since AOL, America Online, bought them out in the early 2000s, they just never got like the right management team in there to sort of cultivate that creativity with the animation. And I think Comcast, they've done a good job with Universal. I think they could definitely revitalize Warner Brothers animation and really bring it to today's audiences, make it more relevant. It would be a good move all around, I think. But it's going to be a tough one though, because that's a big company.
You could run into some, like what the not allowing it to go through due to what do you call it?
Like monopoly.
Monopoly. I could see maybe that happening on some level, but yeah, I mean, they've got amazing IPs, like you said. Like it's a kind of amazing. In the early 2000s, they were the #1 studio. They had Harry Potter, Nolan's Batman, like Lord of the Rings, like they were rolling, and then it's just been mismanaged like crazy since then.
When I was a kid, it was like the Disney afternoon, and then all the Warner Brothers stuff. It was like Animaniacs and Tiny Toons and Tasmania. I mean, it was like they were like neck and neck back in the 90s.
And for anyone that has not ever done the Warner Brothers studio tour, I highly recommend it. Abby and I did it. It was phenomenal. I love that kind of stuff, but to just go through the lot and look back at the nostalgia of everything from TV shows to movies, and they were doing, because they were having their anniversary for Friends, the show Friends. So they had like all the merch and all the props and everything, but they didn't have anything that I was looking for. They didn't have Jennifer Aniston. So
there you go. Yeah, absolutely. And real quick, before we move on to Stella Nova, it would also change the game, I think, for Universal Studios Hollywood, because Warner Brothers, you can literally see the Warner Brothers studio from Universal Hollywood. It's like very close. if they were to buy that studio, they can move a lot of their soundstage stuff, their movie making stuff over to Warner Brothers and free up a lot of space for theme park stuff over in Hollywood, which I think would be really cool. So we'll see.
That's a nice perk with Epic Universe too, because a lot of stuff, that theme park for Epic Universe, the land plot's bigger. They're actually moving a lot of the backstage stuff over to warehouses in Epic Universe. So it's freeing them up in backstage areas where previously they didn't have the room for. So you could see expansions on the studio side because of that. So you can see the same thing in Hollywood, because Hollywood's hurting for space for sure. So if they were able to do that, that would free them up a lot.
Yeah. Jared and OG, I know you want to push on, but have you heard that a rumor about there being 12 houses this year at Halloween Horror Nights?
I've heard a little bit about it. I didn't hear any specifics, but I've heard they may expand it, which I don't know. This would be the first year they've got that it's not really a reservation. If you're an AP, you have to say what night you're coming.
Right.
It might make some sense in trying to manage some of those crowds and have that, but it might spread people out more too, because I've gone the last 2 years and it's fun, but man, you wait in lines forever. Like it is very, very popular.
It would be really fun, and this will never happen, but because you were talking, Slimer, about how Universal pokes fun at Disney and stuff.
Yeah.
If they could do a Disney house.
Well, they do have the public domain stuff now. They can do like Oswald. I think they could do.
Man, that'd be great.
Like Steamboat Willie, right?
And then Winnie the Pooh.
He's shooting people and stuff. Some studio just came out with.
That'd be hilarious. Absolutely hilarious.
Or what if it was like a scary but funny way of poking at Disney? So like all of Disney's failures all in one house.
Right. You could have like a big like Bob Chapek, coming out with a chainsaw.
I was going to say Kathleen Kennedy.
Haunted, like you're just like, I'm Ray Skywalker. Oh no! And just
That's awesome. That's awesome. Real quick too, Jared, on your Ninja Turtle idea, if they ever did lose the rights, or not lose the rights, but gave the rights back to Disney, that would actually be a cool area, Marvel Island for Ninja Turtles.
That's a good idea. Yeah, that's a good idea.
I just feel like Universal would want millions, if not more, for the rights to Marvel, considering. But I agree, if they were to do something like that, I think that would work well. Or if they could get the rights to DC, have a Batman ride or something like you could do some cool stuff in there.
A giant Gotham City on the
that would be
dude, wouldn't that be incredible?
Yeah.
Because that would be a win-win for both Disney and Universal. Give Disney the rights for Marvel, let them do what they want to do, and then you could just move DC in.
Yeah.
And, oh man, that'd be phenomenal.
What do you think? I've thought about it. What do you think if they were to sell them? How much would they be worth to Disney? Because obviously Disney's the only one that can buy them. I would been very curious as to what that price tag would be, because surely they've had discussions at some point. I would assume
the rights to the Marvel Land or
for theme park
rights.
What do you think, Simon?
Well, what they would do is they would look at the book value. They would look at an approximate generation of revenue over the lifespan of Marvel Island. And then they would probably adjust it to some to some percentage over the next 10 to 15 years. Like, hey, this is what we project to make over the next 5 years or something like that. Add it all together and come up with a number. I mean, what would that look like? Holy fucking shit, dude, man.
I know.
Probably like 100 to 200 million. I'm thinking like $250 million.
I've thought that before, 200-ish, 300 million, maybe, if not more.
Yeah.
But
yeah. That land's made a lot of freaking money for Universal Studios.
Yeah. I like it because it's the 90s cartoon comics that I grew up with. So I've actually kind of come to enjoy that land quite a bit. But yeah, I mean, that's why I never bought the rumor that they were just going to scrap it, because if in that contract, I think I've read it a few times, it's a weird contract, but if they just abandon it, Disney just automatically inherits it. So I just don't see Universal just giving it up without, making some coin off of it.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. And from what I understand, Brian Roberts and Bob Iger, they don't like each other. So Brian ain't going to let go.
Brian
not
Roberts
easy, at
and
least.
Bob Iger pay an extra $20 billion to buy Fox. So I don't think that they're writing each other Christmas cards.
Exactly.
Well, if Universal gets DC, then won't they have to make an arrangement with Six Flags, because Six Flags has all the DC stuff in the parks?
Yeah, that would be a complication for sure. Yeah, they'd have to work.
But we have to remember we're talking about relevant things.
Flag. That's what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So Jared, so you stayed at Stella Nova. It just opened, and we did a video on it recently with Mr. Theme Park Wizard, and it looks cool to me. I mean, I don't know. I really thought the inside looks pretty dope, and I've heard good things. Only there was one content creator out there, I won't say names, but he was really going hard on it. But
I saw that.
You saw that? Yeah, I was like, okay, you know, a little nitpicky here, but I thought it looked fantastic. But I mean, how was your experience though?
We were supposed to be there opening day. Our daughter had a dance recital, so we stayed the next day. So we were like the second day in there. So it wasn't opening day, but it was still close to it. But you know, it's a value plus. So in my head, I'm thinking, you know, it's dockside, surfside, which is very similar to those hotels. It's got a lot of whites. That's the only kind of the complaint I have. I imagine that hotel's going to get very dirty on the walls and in the rooms. But it's very like tall ceilings. Like it's nice for, especially the pool area is big. You know, opening day glitches are weak if the water pressure wasn't the best in any of the rooms. The water wasn't really the hottest for showers, but that's stuff that they can work out. Right. The rooms are tighter than your typical, I think, value rooms are. But again, you are literally 5-minute, 10-minute walk to literally the front gate of Epic Universe. Like you just walk down this walkway and you're right there. So given that it's a value under $200 per night within walking distance of a brand new theme park, kind of wild, but the amenities are nice. The food was good. Cool. I always like Lowe's hotels. I really like Universal's hotels personally. So they're always well ran. The rooms were the beds were comfortable. But if you were going to stay a week, personally, I would say go dockside, surfside, because they have those 1-bedroom suites. I think you have more room to just kind of, spread out a little bit. But I mean, it was fine. I think a lot of people were expecting it to be like a premier level, like much more a Helios style. But knowing it going in, it's a value level hotel. It's one of the nicer value level hotels you'll find. Now, there's things you can nitpick about it, but again, it's under $200 a night, walking distance of Epic Universe. I'm like,
that's good.
Yeah, that's really good.
Jared, it's funny you mentioned that because you keep hitting the price, and in my head, I'm just thinking to myself, I've talked about this with George and OG before, and we have, right? Like, so Universal is bringing the premier location experience to a premier park for a fraction of the price of what the Contemporary and the Polynesian are. I mean, that's essentially what they're doing. They're trying to beat Disney at their own game, and this is super smart because if you can't stay at the Contemporary for less than $500 a night, all right, and you can't stay at the Polynesian for less than $1,000 a night is what we're at now.
Yeah.
And Universal's like, hey, we got this cool Men in Black spacey looking hotel over here for 188 or 131. I mean, like, what do you think people are going to go for? I mean, they're going to go for the Men in Black hotel. That's what I call it, by the way, the Men in Black hotel. Because when I saw the Men in Black photo shoot in there, I was just like, I was like, whoever came up with this idea is genius.
You mentioned that. My wife said that too. It's very Men in Black. If that in that ride, how the walls, like there's curves on. I think they said there's no straight angles, so everything's got a curve. Kind of gives a spaceport vibe to it. I mean, I've said this for a long time at Universal's hotels. It's a great way to eat into the market share at the price point they put them at. And even if you look at Disney on, say, anything near Epcot, I mean, you're still not staying anywhere under $400, $500 a night within walking distance of a theme park. So at that price point alone, and just it's not a perfect hotel. Like the rooms are a little tighter than some you'll find, but it's nothing bad. I mean, you can nitpick if you wanted to. I saw the one guy talking about the rain.
Oh, geez.
I didn't notice it because we sleep with fans anyways. So I'm just like, I wouldn't notice it if it was, but I mean, just the proximity. Lowe's hotels are always like, they're nice hotels. They're well ran. It's hard to complain. We got a pass holder rate when they first announced it. We paid $119 to stay.
Wow. Holy crap.
I don't think right now you can get that. I think I saw it was like I think even an opening day at Epic Universe, it was $184. So you're still talking $200 on opening day when the demand is the highest. You can still stay there within walking distance. And like I said, you can take a bus if you want, but it's just a short walk, and you can literally see the Kronos from the lobby, like right there.
Wow.
Like Donkey Kong's right on the corner there. So I'm actually going to have my review on the channel. I think I'm going to have it out tomorrow, but you can see, I mean, it's just right there. Like it's kind of wild how close you are to it.
That's incredible.
That's insane, especially for that price point too, because here's the thing, right, is that there's a lot of people, again, people vacation in different ways, right? So some people like to go on vacation and just chill, relax at the hotel, right? Me, I'm not really that person. My hotel is just there for me to shit, shower, and sleep. That's it, and maybe eat. And then I'm out the entire day. So if you're spending a lot on your hotel and it's super fancy, right, like high scale, then yeah, I would think, especially for someone who likes to chill out their hotel, you want to get more use out of it.
Yeah.
But for someone as myself who's not going to be in the hotel the entire time, I don't want to pay a bunch of money for a hotel stay if I don't plan on like hanging out there for most of my time.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes total sense. If you're just using it to sleep and, like you said, take a shit, then you're pretty much, why would you spend like those Disney prices on that?
The one thing I like as a meathead in the value hotels with Universal, they have the weight room in there is massive. It's huge. And now they don't have dumbbells, but like if you want to work out, like the amenities are there that you won't find at most value entry hotels. The pool area, they had it closed because again, it was freezing in Florida. But the pool area, it's a big pool area. It's got a pool bar, like they got a bar in the lobby. It's got all the stuff you would want and just really the basic amenities and some that go above and beyond. But I think the biggest selling point is just that location and that price.
Yeah, absolutely. It looked cool. It looked really, really cool.
As I said, I was tempted to book either Terra or Luna, but as I said, the only reason why I didn't is because it's going to be Abby's first time at Universal Orlando. So being that a lot more of the other stuff is around the other hotel, so we booked for Cabana and then take the shuttle over for Epic. But sooner or later, I do want to check it out for myself, because I always say on the channel, we could always critique or give our opinions, but you never really know until you actually experience it yourself.
Right.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Like it's not a perfect hotel, but again, I think it just going to that price point, like where it's at. It's just like if you were paying $500 a night, sure, you could start really.
No, this is Universal, so I expect it to be the best.
I mean, Georgia. Although did, as soon as we got in there, I did have to call room service because is the water pressure issue, which has been talked about a lot. I went to flush the toilet and it didn't do anything, and I was like, this could be a problem. But some people were saying like, small things, which I'm sure that'll get fixed in the next month or so. But it just literally opened. I'm guessing they didn't test out all the rooms, would be my guess. But like nitpick, like the fridge in the room kind of knocked a few times in the room. Again, it's stuff that you can fix. Like structurally speaking, I really didn't have any, complaints.
Nice.
One of my good friends actually lives right in that area, and she gets to see the construction every single day. Caitlin, okay. George, yeah, you guys know Caitlin. Yeah, so she just recently moved down there. And she gets to see the construction over at Epic Universe every single day because it's by her house. And she said the construction is nonstop, very fast. I mean, the fact that this thing opened in January when the park doesn't open until May. Yeah. I mean, dude, that's 5 months early, man. I mean, obviously people are going to want to book there like, week, 2 months. Like I would expect the hotel maybe to open up like 3 weeks or 2 weeks before the opening of Epic Universe, but like a whole 5 months. So the other thing too is like all hotels have problems.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just par for the course. It doesn't matter how much. It could be the Waldorf, it could be, the Four Seasons. It doesn't matter what it is. It's going to have problems, and usually takes months for them to be mitigated. So that's pretty normal. But what's really cool about that hotel is that it has like very interesting aesthetic about it that appeals to like every income bracket.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't matter if you're rich, poor, like you could be wealthy and say, yeah, I could say the Riviera, no problem, but the hotel looks kind of cool. And then also too, the Pew too, another YouTube channel I like to follow, he likes the food, like, and he's a foodie, man. Like when he says something's good, I'm like, oh, that's good, because he said it's good. But he said the food's great there, and so Universal is really stepping up their food game as well. So, I like that. To me, it's like an alternative to like Cabana Bay. You know what I mean? Like, because Cabana Bay can sometimes be rough. Like you stay Cabana Bay in like July and August, like, holy shit, what's that in the pool water?
Yeah.
Oh no.
It needs a refurb. It's a cool hotel, but it could definitely use a little love. And like to the food, I had a burger. My wife had a chicken pizza, and it was really good. I think the pizza was 15, the burger was like 14. They had like what we had, sweet potato fries with it. Like it was solid food, and like you get one thing I like about Universal, you get an AP discount on top of that, even in the hotels. Nice. So I had no complaints. Like I didn't hear anybody complain about the food. I mean, yeah, it was a solid experience. And like I said, if you had a family of 4, and now you can only sleep 4 is the only thing about those rooms. So if you had a bigger group than that, then you got to either find a different room or you got to split rooms would be the only caveat. They don't have like a pull-out couch or anything like that. So I think that would be a main, if you got a bigger family, a kind of a drawback to that hotel. But
now, Jared, you paid what you said, $119 a night for that one?
119, then parking was 23. So all in, it was like 140-ish.
Okay, that's crazy. Because George, like at the Anaheim main gate, which is a Motel 6, you're paying like $100 a night, right? Roughly, I mean, give or take.
Roughly, yeah. Now they started a run. I don't know if this is all hotels like in the Anaheim area or just in general, but they all started adding where you have to pay for parking, whether you're I guess there or not. And I think at the Anaheim main gate, I think it's like $25 a night.
So literally, you were paying the same price at the Motel 6 that Jared paid at the Stella Nova. I mean, that's crazy for the amount that you get at Stella for the same price as at Motel 6 over across from Disneyland. That's wild to me. That blows my mind.
But I have a feeling, though. Do you guys think that as the years go on and this hotel and the Epic Universe gets more popular, Universal little by little start increasing those prices?
I think they will, because I think right now Universal's in market share mode, and that's what you do. You price low, you get people in, and as it gets more popular, it will go up. I think.
Yeah.
They probably will. They haven't increased the prices that drastically. You can still get they call it a 2-bedroom, but it's a 1-bedroom suite at Dockside Surfside. You can still find them in the 120, 130 ranges sometimes, depending on how busy the parks are.
I can't believe the price for the Helios.
I know that was same with me. Yeah.
I was like flabbergasted that it's like what, $350.
You can get it as low if you pay 5 nights or more, it's like in the 200s.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
What?
I thought it was gonna be like $700.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Dude, that's wild.
And they have plans. There's other plots. They're going to do at least one more other hotel in that Epic Universe land over there. So they'll have at least another one probably in the next 5 to 10 years, I would say.
You know what's crazy to me is with those prices, man. Like I've stayed at quite a few of the Walt Disney World resorts, but there's a few premium ones that I haven't stayed at. Like I haven't stayed at the Polynesian, but at those prices, man, like the Polynesian for me as a dream is like a fleeting idea now.
I can tell if you want to stay there. We've only stayed there by renting points. So some of the listeners of our podcast, that makes it much more affordable. Like, yeah, I love the Polynesian. It's my favorite Disney hotel. But it's not worth $1,000 a night. Like, at least to me, I'm just like, I'm not paying that to stay there for sure. But
yeah,
that's wild. Yeah, George and I stayed there. Was that a year and a half now ago? It's crazy.
It was a year and a half.
Yeah. But
I do love the Poly. I do love it.
Yeah,
but I was doing it by myself.
It's pricey.
I do hope that prices like the Helios really bring down the prices over some of the Disney resorts. Because I mean, there was one time where I stayed at Animal Kingdom Lodge for $384 a night. That was a killer deal.
Wow.
Yeah, super killer. Very much worth it.
You ain't lying. You ain't lying.
I ain't lying.
Animal Kingdom dog.
Well, that's the thing I find interesting is you've already seen Disney offer pretty massive discounts running into the fall. Depending on how, and I don't know if this is so long, I don't know. Nobody knows how it's going to affect Disney. If do people spill over from Epic Universe to Disney? Like, how's that go? But if Disney does really start needing people, you could start seeing some pretty massive discounts, not only on the parks, but like the hotels. So in the next, while they're building all their stuff, that's when you could start seeing hotel prices come down quite a bit just because of where Universal's pricing theirs. And it kind of makes it to where, if people are looking at pricing on a vacation, you can stay at Stella Nova for $150, $180 a night, be right next to the new, theme park. That's hard to argue with when you're looking at trying to say, well, how much is it over here? And All-Star Movies is $160, $180. It's, like they're fine, but they're just like basic hotels over there.
Yeah, 100%.
At least the value end.
100%. Jared, awesome having you on the show. We'll have you back on again very, very soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Everybody at home, make sure you in the description down below. I will have all of Jared's the YouTube channel, all that good stuff in the description. Make sure you subscribe and follow Capture the Magic. But Jared, if you can just kind of remind everybody where they can find you on social media.
Instagram, I think TikTok's still a thing for now, but everything is at Cap the Magic, and over on YouTube, Cap the Magic as well. We're closing in on 10,000 subs, so hopefully we'll get that in the next month or so. And then over, if you want more of a, park tips, reviews, stuff in the theme parks for Disney World and Universal, over on YouTube as well at CTM Podcast. Wherever you listen to podcasts, you can find it on there as well. So again, thanks for having me. Great conversation. Enjoyed all of it, and looking forward to doing it again soon.
Absolutely, absolutely. The Italiano, where can everybody find you on social media, George?
Absolutely. You can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Disney George. You can also find me on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky under the Disney Italiano. And of course, you can find me right here on my home base on Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner, with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info.
There he is. And right next to him, we got Mr. Webba. Mr. Webba, where can everybody find you on social media, sir? Oh, I like that. That W, man? You got the W?
That W, man.
Oh, look at you.
Thanks, bro. You gave me the right finger this time.
LG, thank you so much for having me on with everybody here. You can find me, Mr. Webba, on Twitter at webslinger760, and then on Threads and Instagram at cobweb91. You can also find me here on Orange Grove 55.
There he is. Slimer, where can everybody find you at home? Where can everybody find you at home? Where can everybody at home find you on social media, sir?
Hey, listen, thanks again for having me. And it was a pleasure jumping on here with Jared from Capthemagic.
Yes.
If you guys haven't checked out his YouTube, check it out. Man, this guy puts out the news on theme parks faster than it actually hits Twitter. But you guys can find me on Slime Square 84 on X, and you guys can find me on Orange Grove 55.
There he is. Everybody, comment down below with all your thoughts on Universal and their recent push into nostalgia. Good move, not so good move. What are your opinions on that? What are your opinions on the Stella Nova opening? All that good stuff. We would love to hear from you. And until the next time, see you.
Thank you for watching OG55. If you aren't already, consider becoming a member today.